Welcome to Newsmakers. Today we're going to talk about the upcoming legislative year for the Missouri State Legislature. I'm here at the Truman Presidential Library in Independence, Missouri with Missouri State Senator Ed Emery. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So beginning of a new year, beginning of a new session, how do you feel about this upcoming year?
You know, it's an election year and it's always harder to get significant things done in an election year because people get nervous about doing things that all their constituents might not agree with. But so far it looks like we may actually accomplish some fairly significant things this year. We have a number of things that we're trying to work on, and we'll just have to kind of see how the beginning of the legislature works out. But we're moving quickly. We're getting a lot of bills read in, a lot of bills assigned to committee, and we've begun hearing bills in committee, and I think all but one of the committees has already met this year.
So what are some of the hot issues for this year?
Well, we've got a number of things that we've had some things coming out of Washington, D.C. that we're responding to, whether it's gun control matters, real ID issues. The real ID has become a kind of a big thing. Missouri passed legislation a few years ago when real ID really cranked up because of all the information, all the way to facial recognition and biometric data and other things that made a lot of us nervous that believe part of our job, I actually believe that the greatest part of our job is protecting the liberties and the individual security of our constituents. And so we passed legislation at that time that said Missouri's not going to do this. We're not going to put biometric data on our driver's license because we feel like it's a violation of individual liberties. The federal government now, through this process, has recently said, well, after January 10th, you can't fly on airplanes, you can't go to federal courthouses, you can't get on military bases. And there was a lot of panic, which I think was on purpose. I think that's the reason that the federal government did that, to try to see if they couldn't panic states like us into conformance. And when we didn't immediately buckle and say, yeah, we'll do whatever you say, then they backed off and they said, okay, we're going to give you 2 more years before you have to have a driver's license. Whiteman Air Force Base requires more security than the Real ID does. They require background checks, so you can't get on there, whether you're a legislator or not a legislator, without a background check. Fort Leonard Wood has said, well, we're going to make a compensation and we're going to let you on and with a driver's license and some other form of ID. So all of those things have been accommodated for the time being. It will give us some more time to try to figure out just exactly how willing our constituents are to give all their information to a federal government that seems reluctant to protect our identities. You know, we had just last year before, we had the incidents where all of our concealed carry data was turned over, I think 3 times to federal officials, and with the idea that they were going to start aligning that with Social Security information, and the federal government was going to decide who could get a gun and who couldn't get a gun. And so there's a lot of I guess, uncertainty about giving information like that to the federal government. If you look through history, anytime a nation began to give all of its information to a central government, it's never gone well.
Do you feel like there's kind of a middle ground you guys can find? Do you think there's a way that you'll be able to maybe satisfy the federal government while still?
Some legislators are proposing giving citizens the option of saying, well, I don't mind getting biometric data on my driver's license, and I'm willing to do that. And so giving them the option of having a driver's license like that, or not having it and then having to take a passport or something else to the airport. I don't know where the body in general will be on that. I'm not comfortable with it because there is still the concern that data will be abused, and it's my job as a legislator not just to protect my own data, but to protect the information of my constituents. So I have a reluctance there that'll have to be overcome.
Sure. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of work to do this year.
We won't be lacking something to do.
I'm sure you won't. Thanks so much for being here.
You bet. My pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.